1st. I believe it's June already. Can I have a moment of silence for all of those who serve inside and outside our borders, please? All right, can you please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, can we have roll call, please, Jeanette?
Sure. Mayor Sandoval?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Calvert?
Here.
Trustee Ralston?
Here.
Trustee Bradnan?
Here.
Trustee Blum?
Here.
And Trustee Overman?
Here.
All right, can I entertain a motion to approve the agenda, please?
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, agenda is approved. Next is audience participation, and we're going to put the appointments and the oath of office in the audience participation. So we'll start out with having each one of these gentlemen stand up and introduce themselves. And if we have any trustees with questions, it will be the time to ask. And so right now, number one, I have, looks like Nico. You are up.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nico Rios. I just had it over. So I've lived and grew up in Platteville all my life. I went to elementary and middle school here at South Valley and then Platteville Elementary. And I recently earned my degree in December from MSU Denver in political science. So I decided to move back. It took a lot of thinking. The pandemic kind of affected a lot of things. But I decided to move back and work in my community at the Silver Spur. And use my degree to help where I grew up. I just wanted to come back instead of going to another city or another town. So that kind of brings me to applying for the Board of Trustees position because I want to use my skills and connection to the community on the board. I interact with the community a lot at the Silver Spur as well on Main Street. We try to improve it. So I'm really passionate about like the future of Platteville, where it's heading, where it's been. It's been like a huge drastic change from when I grew up till now. There's a lot of moving parts, so it's really good to see. And then I just talked with a lot of community members that also encouraged me to apply because they're passionate about it as well. So Platteville's just something like when I tell people, they're like, "Where are you from?" and I say Platteville, it means something to me. They might be like, "Where is that at?" But it's something that I hold dear. So that's what I wrote.
Yeah. Any questions?
Sure. Are you looking at furthering your career in government, doing something else after?
Good question. Yeah, I get that a lot. Right now, I think the most important thing was to have the education. I mean, I feel like I can use it wherever I'm placed, just having that knowledge. But in terms of furthering it in like a government position, I've thought about foreign service and stuff like that. But right now, I'm helping the family business and here in Platteville. Yeah, I'm definitely open to it. Yeah.
So you say you're helping the family. Is that your family business?
Yeah, the Silver Spur. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then we also have it still has the church sign, that brick building next to it, the First Assembly building. And then soon we'll have the gallery that was next to it on the left. Yeah, however you look at it. Yeah, so we just want to see Main Street popping and a lot of foot traffic on there so people have somewhere to go in Platteville. Whether it be the bar, the restaurant, or other little ventures. Yeah.
Any other questions for Nico? All right.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you,
sir.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Mr. Hatcher.
Bring my application so I tell the same story.
We'll know if you're lying.
Okay. I'm Larry Hatcher. My wife and I moved to rural Platteville in 1988, about 3 miles east of town. Moved into Platteville, I think it was about 2007. And now I'm retired and looking for good things to do here. I'm assuming you all read your application, but I thought I'd just re-hit a couple of the highlights. some of the things I think that give me qualification or knowledge that maybe could help the board make good decisions. Said I've been involved in the poultry industry for over 50 years, and I've held supervisory positions in Iowa, Canada, Minnesota, California, and Colorado. I worked for big companies and small companies, Land O'Lakes, Foster Farms, Longmont Foods, who's part of ConAgra, Butterball, and the last 10 years of my working career I worked for Morning Fresh Farms just outside of town here. I managed their cage-free hens. And I worked on family farms growing up. I've managed operations of more than 200 employees. I planned and managed fiscal budgets of over $50 million annually. And I've dealt with auditors on the internal, customer, and government levels throughout that career. A couple things I thought about this afternoon I might add that are relevant in today's political climate. I was thinking back, it's been at least 35 years ago I started hiring women and minorities into positions of responsibility where I worked, and not because they were women or minorities, because I felt they were the best person for the job. But today that would carry some weight, I think. And also, like I mentioned, all these years in the poultry industry, and so on a daily basis, you deal with infectious diseases, the control, prevention, managing it. And although animals aren't the same as people, the biology is the same. So I have dealt with influenza viruses and coronaviruses, so I understand and respect the germ theory. Hopefully that's not very relevant going forward, but maybe. Yeah, and here again, I still close by saying I grew up in a rural farming community in central Iowa in the 1960s.
Any questions for Mr. Hatcher? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next up is Mr. Russell.
Well, my background's a little different than the other candidates, and I am really super impressed with the qualifications of the other candidates. I mean, I don't see how you guys could go wrong with any of them. But having said that, my background is in real estate. I used to own dozens of real estate properties, and I've rented them all out, commercial and residential. Owned all the stuff that I managed. And then I opened up 4 restaurants, breakfast lunch places, really small, not real big places. And sold all them, sold all my real estate, and decided to move to the country. I've never lived in the country, ever. My wife has never lived in the country, ever. So always in the city. And I never thought I would, but we just kind of found this property. I'm rehabbing the old fireplace, the old firehouse. I imagine you guys already know all this, but
The
maintenance shack, yeah. I found a lot of very interesting things in there I'd like to share with you guys. Unbelievable.
I don't hope we want to know.
No, you want to know. It's very interesting. It's good. But I think my business background, all my businesses were successful. I mean, it's for somebody to run a restaurant. Matter of fact, all the restaurants I sold, only one is still going as far as I know. All the rest failed. So it's very difficult to run a restaurant. Rental properties, they're very difficult to manage. You have to manage your renters. You have to deal with the people that don't want to pay, things like that. So it was very challenging. I did that for about 25 years, all that together for about 25 years, about 10 and a half years in the restaurant business. And I think that kind of brings a little bit to bear as far as my qualifications.
Now you moved here from the Denver area, or?
Yeah, I lived in Denver. I moved to Denver in 1990, and my son started first grade, bought a house, stayed in the house until he graduated from high school, and then I started working in buying real estate. Because, family is very important to me. My son and my daughter are just excellent, top of the line, just great people. My son has never given me any trouble. My daughter gets a little lippy sometimes, but you know, she's just like that. It's just the two of us. But she's got a great family. So I put a lot of time into that. I'm very proud of that. That's one of the more proud things I've ever done. But so I started into real estate after that, and here I am.
Any other questions for Mr. Russell?
What do you think Platteville needs to going forward?
That's a good question. That's a good question. And I am so new to Platteville, and that's why I'm running, because I want to find out how a small town works, how it ticks, what it needs, what it doesn't need. So I think it could use a little more, you know, some more businesses moving in, things like that. But to be honest with you, I'm here to learn. I'm here to learn. I mean, I have never even been in a forum like this. I've never done meetings like this before. I've never been in politics or even dealt with any kind of town meetings or anything. So I'm here to learn. Be a part of the community. And so that's why I decided. It took me a while to kind of get to this point. I mean, we've been here for 15 months. I think it's about 15 or 16 months. And I've been working my tail off. And I finally got the place to a certain level that we're comfortable. We're kind of comfortable. I'm doing landscaping inside. There's just a few little details that I need to do. So I thought this might be a good time. And when I heard about the position, I thought, let's get involved. If we're going to live in this little town, let's be part of this little town.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Sir. I appreciate it.
I have a question for Nico though.
Okay, Nico. We have
Might not be the
another
most popular question. It's a question that might need to be answered though.
Yeah.
I hate to ask it, but I think it needs to be asked. What does your family have to gain from you if you were to be appointed?
No, that's a good question. And we talked about it, but like where it says like if there's any conflict of interest. I would say it's pretty separate. They would play a role like any other community member in voicing their concerns or opinions, but I would say it's not weighted any more than anyone, my neighbor. Something like that.
You wouldn't have a problem recusing yourself from
No.
a certain vote?
No, not at all. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely understand I guess studying political science, I look at it as bipartisanship in a way, in that aspect of those rules, for sure.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Sorry.
No, you're
I was thinking that too quick, yeah.
Good question. Any other questions before we vote? All right, so at this time I will ask if you guys could raise your hands and we'll see who gets the most votes and then we'll appoint that person. So first I have Nico. 1, 2, 3, okay. And Mr. Hatcher. 1, 2, okay. And Mr. Russell. Okay. All right, so it looks like we have Miko. Welcome to the board. Yes. All right.
And you guys, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you guys for all trying to apply for the position.
Yes.
Appreciate that.
It was fun.
Yeah, and you guys are always welcome to the board meetings to kind of get a feel of what we're doing here and what's going on.
I think I will. Like I said, I'm here to learn. So.
Yes, perfect.
And there are other committees too to get involved with the town, planning commission,
Park trails, trees.
park trails, trees. I mean, if you want to get more involved in the community, there's other aspects too that.
How do I find out about those?
Parks, Trails, and Trees meets the third Monday of the month at 6:30 p.m. And Mr. Spencer here, he's the liaison.
Here?
Yes, here.
Yeah, right here.
Right here.
Okay. Well, that might be a good fit for me because I volunteered for the Colorado Trail Foundation for about 10 years.
Oh,
Perfect.
yes.
Yes.
Certainly love to have you.
Okay. I'll call you. I'll send you an email.
Perfect.
Good.
Do you want to come up here? I'll just have you raise your right hand and read that.
I do solemnly swear that I will support, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the State of Colorado, and the ordinances of the Town of Platteville, and that I will faithfully perform the duties of the office of trustee to which I have been duly appointed.
Okay. So if you'll print your name here and sign there.
Oh, this was the signature.
Yeah, that's correct. Yes. And do the same on this one, please. Okay, you can have a seat.
Awesome, thank you.
Awesome,
Thank
congratulations.
you. Thank you. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Nick, would you help him with his microphone, please? Thank you.
Mike also lives in next regular election is next spring.
Yes, yes, so this, yep, that's a good point. This is to just finish Larry Clark's term, so for 1 year, I think we had talked, so.
Does it turn into a general election like with the town?
Yes, so then we have our general elections in the spring of every even year. And every even year we have a mayor run and we have 3 of the trustees run. Mayor's seat is 2 years, trustees are 4 years.
Okay.
And they alternate, so, let's see, it would be Larry Clark, Spencer Bradman, and Mike Cowper that will be up, and you would be in Larry Clark's seat, so your
Okay.
seat would be up for election as well.
Sweet, thank you.
Absolutely. Perfect. And moving on. Approval of the consent agenda, which includes the minutes of the May 18th, 2021 regular meeting of the Board of Trustees and Geotech Services Agreement.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Moving on to action items. We have the Harvest Daze Special Events Liquor License. Mr. Rankin.
Thank you, Mayor. And, excuse me, an annual approval so we can have the alcohol for the beer garden during Harvest Daze, which is third week in August each year. This was continued from last meeting because we added the permit. Typically it's for Saturday, but we added Sunday to cover the, primarily the softball tournament and to, regulate alcohol use on Sunday as well. So this is a Saturday, Sunday event for this permit.
So we will recess the Board of Trustees meeting at 7:17 p.m. and open up the public hearing of the Platteville Liquor Licensing Authority. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, just for Miko's understanding that the liquor license authority is the same as the board. It's just you have to have a separate public hearing, and then once you make the decision, it goes back to the regular board of trustees.
Okay. In case the board, the public has like any objection or anything.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. I'm guessing there's no public. Do the trustees have any questions?
So you'll be selling liquor on Sunday as well?
Correct.
Okay.
Beer. No.
Well, here, yeah,
That's about it.
where do I get the hard stuff?
You're
We're not
right.
selling any hard stuff.
My knowledge.
No wine, no vinos.
No.
No, the craft beers this year.
Not
We
my
might,
knowledge.
yeah, well, that cider place, we're trying to get some, like craft, some local breweries.
This would cover craft beer, correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, it's not hard liquor.
Sure.
All right.
I'm sorry?
You can sell anything on this permit.
With anything, okay. So we do have a vendor who wants to come with,
Distilled product. But we have to sell ourselves, right? That's what was
Yeah.
decided on.
yeah, that's the caveat.
All right, bring in the Tito's.
I don't know if we have qualified people to do that.
I think it makes it that much more interesting.
I was a bartender at one point.
There we go.
My good Lord, boy.
I just heard Mr. Cowper.
That sounds like a volunteer to me.
I was a bartender in Wyoming and there was only like 3 drinks.
Coors Light, Bud Light.
The small, the medium, the large, right?
Rum and Coke.
That's like the movies where they just have the one drink in the saloon, right? You drink, this is is what
You
you're
just,
saying.
you just put the bottle on the bar.
Oh, goodness.
We have to go back, we make a motion now?
Yeah.
For that?
We get close to
Yes, no, we need to make a motion now, right? No, we're closing.
We get close to hearing yet.
Close the
No.
hearing.
Yes.
Close the hearing.
Adjourn the meeting of the liquor license at 7:20 p.m. And now reconvene the meeting of the Board of Trustees, and now I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve a special event permit for 508 Reynolds Avenue on August 21st from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. and August 22nd from 10 a.m. to 10 o'clock p.m.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Moving on to the Fourth Amendment to the antenna placement agreement. Mr. Rankin.
Thank you, Mayor. Fourth Amendment to the agreement between Town of Platteville and Rise Broadband. Since 2014, we have leased space on top of the west where the smaller 500,000 gallon water tower. There's two up there, the larger 1,000,000 gallons on the east side. But because of the tree blockage, everybody wants to rent equipment or lease equipment for direct connection wirelessly off that smaller one. A few months ago, Rise Broadband reached out to me to add essentially 2 larger antennas to replace 4 smaller ones. Long story short, I came upon the fact that they weren't paying us for many years, so that's been resolved, money's in the bank. This lease agreement, well, the current lease agreement is for $1,000 a month. It started off around $400 years ago, and I've asked them to increase that with monthly payment as they add more equipment. What I'll ask David to do sometime this summer is work with our town engineer to assess the structural integrity of the top of that water tower to ensure that we have the space and capability. I talked to Rise Broadband about this. At some point, I'm going to have to tell them no. I just don't know when that point may be, because we can't affect our water tower, our integrity of our water tower. But that's going to be down the road. But before we do another agreement, the reason I brought it up is I won't bring another agreement to the board until that is done. I don't feel that there's any harm now by any means, but we talked about that because they wanted me to reduce the monthly payment, and I won't do that. Because the 2 antennas they're adding is providing more capability on their end than the 4 smaller ones. So, not to get into the weeds here, but I'm coming with this Fourth Amendment. The rent stays the same. I feel that's fair because the 2 larger ones are about the same size as the 4 smaller ones, and the rent increase is based upon how many antennas they've added up there or equipment. So, I told them I just want to ask the board to it's your decision, but I feel that they're still making a good profit off their equipment. So I think they can pay the town, and that's pretty much the standard rate when I talk to the town managers, around $1,000 to $1,200 a month for that size of leased area. So that's what is before you tonight, and I would recommend approval of this Fourth Amendment to the 2014 contract with Rise Broadband. Used to be Skype originally.
So they're getting the same rate as the other companies in town?
Comparable. It depends if they're surface mounted or if they have their own poles. I mean, it varies.
Sure.
But for like a space this size, or several years ago when they did the Third Amendment, I did ask around the Fort Lupton and LaSalle and some other towns, and some places lease equipment. Believe it or not, a lot of churches will lease area because they're typically the tallest peak of the town, which is what they look for.
Sure.
But with the cemetery and the height of the elevation, they like that spot. But really not a whole lot more can go on there, but we'll do an assessment and we'll report back to the board later this summer. So, that's all I have right now.
Are there a bunch of brackets and stuff drilled in the top of the tank? Is that what
On the sides, I don't think there's any figures in your packet, but actually there are.
There are.
There's some, and that was my argument with them, because the original 2014 lease said it would be based upon the total square footage of the top of the tower. Well, as you can see, they're mounted on the side as well.
Oh.
So I said, we can't do that. We have to go by the amount of equipment up there, not the square footage. It doesn't fully encompass, but when you get up there, I won't go up there, David gets up there. I'm not really a height guy, but, and then David was up there recently. Then we had the water tanks inspected and the divers went in there. Was that last year?
We will be doing a full inspection of both tanks later this year.
Later
We
this
did
year.
have the 1,000,000-gallon tank, we had a small leak in that
That's
they
right.
resolved back in February.
That's right. So there are a few pictures, and we require them to do a site plan, so they pay for that. They go through that process with the town planner. That's part of our code requirement. So we can ensure what they have up there is authorized.
So this one picture has bricks.
I was gonna ask a question.
Is that very safe to have bricks up there like that?
I can't answer that.
That's part of what we'll have to evaluate. It was determined at the time that they were allowed to put them up there that it would be appropriate. I mean, that's how they avoided any type of bolting or welding to the tank. So,
Is that rise?
yeah.
Correct?
I believe that's theirs, yes.
There's a lot going on top of
There's
this.
a lot going on.
That is a question, Troy. We ever looked at, talking about capital improvements, have we ever looked at like putting a tower there? Like off of like an antenna tower that they would be able to rent space on, because it seems like it's a very lucrative point to have a communication tower right there.
Yeah.
Having Platteville construct their own tower and then, you know, it's in essence selling vertical real estate for their communications.
I looked into as far as a town venture. A couple years ago, a company approached me about that same thing where they put up towers, and that money was going to go toward the Youth and the Parks, Trails, and Trees Committee. They eventually found another location. And those are the towers that they can make them look like
Trees.
silos, trees. I mean, they're all over Colorado. You just don't really notice them because they're fake.
Right. Well, what is a tower? I don't know what a tower would you rent just the tower itself. A normal.
And I don't know what the demand would be in our area right now. I mean,
It's not going to go down. What
It won't.
communication is, and that's right on top of a hill that spans probably to Kersey, fairly close to. I mean, it's a high point around here. I just thought that might be a good location to. I don't know. Town could.
They're probably gonna attract more communications companies.
Well, true, and then you have, I mean, it might pay for itself in a short amount of time. And
I
then
can
you
look
start
at-
making business off or making money off it there, so.
I just don't know anything about those type of
I just thought
towers.
the idea, maybe we could do some
Or we
research
can-
in
I
doing
can-
that, rather than affect the integrity of the water towers up there
Mhm.
and having bricks holding the equipment down, and we get some winds around here. I don't know, it's just something I thought maybe we could look into.
Yeah, about 4 years ago, if you look outside the cemetery a little bit further north, there's another separate tower. That's Verizon. They first approached me to put a tower in the cemetery, but because of the tree row, they opted to go with that private landowner. They leased it, or they basically paid him to put a tower on his property.
Right.
And then there's a tower site south of County 28 on the east side of 85 by the port of entry. I'm not sure who owns that one.
Okay.
So, but I can ask around and take a look into it. But
Well,
I
even-
never pursued it myself before.
Yeah, I just thought keeping away from the towers,
Sure.
one's no good because of the tree obstruction, and the other one's good, but it seems like everybody wants to build on that to eliminate the integrity
Yeah, it's pretty well
aspect
covered
there. I
right
mean,
now.
you could build vertical real estate there and just start selling cellular or tower space or something, or renting.
Okay. I'll definitely take a look at that.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? I'll entertain a motion, please.
Move to approve the Fourth Amendment to the antenna placement agreement between Town of Platteville and Skybeam LLC, doing business as Rise Broadband.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Moving on, Buckeye paving proposal, Mr. Rankin.
Thank you, Mayor. This is not a budgeted item. This is stemming from faster deterioration on Buckeye Boulevard than we anticipated. Talking to David, looking at it again last week when I was off, I went over there and took a look at the road. It has some worse areas than others, not the entire section, but of course the whole section would need to be replaced. But you know, evaluating the budget, looking at other areas, I'm really not asking the board for a decision tonight, but we want to approach the board that this is an estimate of what it's going to cost. If we did pursue this, then I would definitely recommend not pursuing Grand Avenue later this year. The budget won't hold both projects. So the decision, the discussion tonight is, if you've seen Buck Rake, or we can continue this until you have, the idea is to take out that median, that little narrow, 3-foot wide median, and those trees,
5 to 6 foot wide.
probably. I didn't measure it, eyeballed it. And the trees are mature enough, we don't know if we can salvage those and replant them or not. I don't know. But, the popularity along that area, because there's a tight road, you really can't park anything bigger than a small car. The median going away would be probably popular along those for the residents.
Every one of them I've talked to want it gone.
Yeah.
Public Works would probably appreciate it too.
Yeah.
Complaining.
Yeah.
He wasn't even there.
It was a decorative entry when Plum developed it.
If I may, the entry portion, that median would stay with the rock sign. It's just the part from Rogers Drive or Rogers Circle to Rogers Circle.
Correct.
That
One of the
portion.
bases of those people can't turn left out of their house.
Left or right, yeah, depending on which side of the street you're on, correct. So that, I just wanted to clarify that that's the median. We're not talking about removing the median at the original entrance there with the sign. Because the entrance, they actually made the roads wide enough, plus you don't end up people parking their RVs and boats right there in the entrance, so.
So earlier today I was thinking twice about this. Not that it doesn't need to be done, but we also know, David was talking to A1 Chip Seal about some estimates also for Rogers Farm. That's budgeted for Bella Vista this year. We did a lot of patching down there in recent years. We need a chip sealer. One thought that came to mind that I'm actually leaning toward is let's finish up Bella Vista, see how the budget goes, and then focus on Grand Avenue this year. The next year's budget will be solely focused on Old Homestead and Rogers Farm. Both a lot of patching and chip sealing throughout in sidewalk repair.
Can you patch Buck Rake enough to get it to 2022?
Well,
something
through
to
the year,
2022.
There's some areas in there that David and I was talking about where we could temporarily cold patch it, clean it up, cold patch it. But we're trying to get through a year on that.
Right. Can you make it? I like the Grand Avenue plan. I think that needs it. We said we're gonna do it, but
And the reason
make it to 2022 with Buck Rake.
I think we can. I mean, it's not gonna look pretty. I'm not gonna deny that. I mean, there's, especially about halfway through going westbound in the lane, that's where we came apart the worst. It's kind of in the middle, both east end or north or south side. But both ends aren't too awful bad. I've never liked coming in from the west going east because it's kind of a big bump going up. You know, the other side's not so bad. But we didn't budget it. We talked about it for a 2022 project with Rogers Farm and Old Homestead. It's just, we're starting to get some complaints in there.
Yeah.
And we're gonna continue to have complaints until we fix it. So what is the most fiscally responsible goal for this year and next year?
So Grand Avenue is a want, in my opinion, and Buck Rake is a need.
We've done a lot of patching on Grand Avenue, especially down by Valley Village. And the reason we talk about Grand Avenue for 21 is we're also doing a sidewalk on Grand Avenue, and we're doing a sidewalk on Division. So we're finishing that connector along those two stretches. So with the new 7-Eleven, there's no pedestrian path down Grand Avenue. That was another thought process. And then Division from Goodrich to Reynolds. So that's where the thought process was going. So we knew 7-Eleven was coming in this year. But you're right, road condition wise, it's not as bad as Buck Rake Boulevard. And it's more money obviously than Buck Rake Boulevard. So, and I know there's been some talk about it, so Dave and I want to bring this for the board for discussion. And if, let's as an action item if you wanted to do that. My recommendation is that we make do this year. That's my personal recommendation.
And you think you could do that, David, with some stuff?
We could. They'll be very happy to have us do the work next year.
Well, I think that's what
and the thing that
we're just gonna be on that.
And that would be, we would just need to make sure we do a really good job of communicating, letting people know what the plan is. I don't think it would be worth putting any significant hot patching in out there because it's not gonna be an overlay project. It's gonna be a complete deconstruct, reconstruct.
Right.
If it was gonna be an overlay project, then I would say, yeah, let's go in and do some hot patching in there and, you know, fill the significant potholes and get those taken care of, and then we can just overlay them next year. But When the original subdivision was done, they did not do any road base underneath the asphalt, from what we've been able to tell. They had a geotech report that said that the subsurface, which the sandy subsurface that we have around here does make a good base. But what we have learned, or what I have learned in my 13 years of being here, is that even though it makes a good base, having a separation from the native soil to the asphalt makes a better road construction project when it's all said and done. So what we're, and part of what Troy had mentioned, and maybe it was in the report and I missed it, was the entrance there to Rogers Farm, the original entrance, the drainage has always been very, very poor. And part of what we're looking at is having Northern Engineering come in and do a topo of that area, figure out how we can come up with a drainage solution that, as part of this, if we need to add some more, right now there's an inlet on both the north and the south side of the original entrance out there, with a culvert in between them, and the culvert goes nowhere.
There's no flow.
So part of that would be, do we put a trickle channel further to the north, because we've actually got grade, so that we can fill that culvert and those boxes up, and then it gives a spot for it to go. There's a little bit of crowning issue that we would have to do, and a reconstruct of that entrance and that bid, part of the bid was the full going from Storkel Boulevard all the way to the other end, including the entrance. It just wasn't removing the median on the entrance. And that number did not include having the median demolished and removed by someone else. That's assuming that Public Works could get in there and do that. Of course, I've had several homeowners out there offer to go run a skid steer and help with that. They think that would be fun. But and as part of this, we were also looking at, okay, we did the crack seal throughout the rest of the subdivision this year, but we didn't do the crack seal on buck rake, because we knew this was coming, so we didn't spend any money on buck rake. Then we've also gotten estimates to go ahead and do a chip seal throughout the whole subdivision, with the exception of we would not chip seal the newly built Buck Rake Boulevard. But back to your question, Mr. Blum, we could probably make do. I don't know if you remember Division Boulevard before we did it 6 or 7 years ago from Grand Avenue up to Reynolds, before we paved that in there. By the time we got to the pavement, it looked like a minefield. and the first day that the Marietta came in and actually excavated that out and got rid of everything, everybody was happy with the smooth gravel. They didn't even want us to do anything else to it. So I have a hunch that the folks along Buck Rake are probably going to be in a similar position if we wait till 22, but I don't think it's going to be the end of the world. We can put some cold patch, and help make it where it's not jarring your fillings loose as you go over it, but it's not going to be pretty, and it's not going to look like a new road until we get in there and make it a new road. So, but we need to get the engineering estimates as to what that's going to cost us to do that part, so that we can factor all that in. And that's part of what Troy's thought process of potentially waiting to next year was.
Do it right, yeah.
Yeah, this isn't an all-inclusive number yet. This is the basic reconstruction. The storm drainage, we don't have, Mr. Curtis hasn't had enough time, our engineer, to get that done yet. But I know it's been talked about, and it's a hot topic, but I don't live there, obviously, but I think if people knew that next year we're gonna get this done, then they'd probably work with us on that.
Well, I've been telling everybody that it's part of discussion for the 2022 budget.
Okay.
So, and everybody seems okay with a year.
As long as we don't tell them the unknown, if we actually follow through with what we do, then
Well,
I think
yeah.
we'll be fine. But
Absolutely.
again, I mean, my wife used to complain because the last road we touched was Reed Road, because I lived there.
Okay.
And we did other roads for 10 straight years.
Mhm.
I get it.
We just need to make sure that we have the engineering component ready for the budget. We have this, estimate of, it'll probably go up next year, but at least we know what ish we can pass through the page, and we just need to have the other stuff ready for the budget appropriately.
Well, and part of what, and the group, Martin Marietta, they have bid every project for the last 13 years, whether it's a small $10,000 patching project or the big $500,000 projects that we've done. They have bid every paving project that we've had. And in my 13 years, we've only given them 2 or 3 of the projects where they were the low bidder or the most reasonable for the project. I appreciate the fact that Roper is willing to look at things, come in and give us a shot. He mentioned and suggested that we actually use a method out there where they would not harvest all of the existing asphalt through the grinding process, but they would actually mix that with the existing sand and soil, compact that, and then come back with road base over the top of that to give us a more significant base on the road out there. He said they've done that in some other areas of Platteville. It must have been before my time, where and I've heard of that, where that's significantly mixing the ground up asphalt in with the existing sandy soil and that kind of thing, and then recompacting it, and then putting it's kind of a layer of base and then a layer of base on top of that. Sure.
So where are we with engineering on Grand Avenue? That probably needs to be done before we could bid it, right?
We have some engineering to do on anything that we do. So engineering on Grand needs to be done, the surveyor needs to come in. And I would actually ask the board to have this engineering done at the same time. So we're ready for next year. So I will bring the total engineering package back to the board at the next meeting. If Mr. Curtis is on vacation this week, so I'll try. If not, then the first meeting in July. If we had a first meeting in July.
Or the second meeting in July.
Or the second meeting in July. A lot of you cancel first meeting because of war. But this is, excuse me, around $6,100 total on Mr. Curtis's proposal to complete the surveying, the engineering studies, utility locates. We have to do utility locating no matter what we do. That's pretty costly sometimes. This isn't too bad. And then provide that hard number for a budget as we go into this fall to complete this project next year. But for engineering, I'm gonna ask Brad Curtis to provide the second cost for the engineering on Grand Avenue is not too awful bad. I think most of the engineering and the surveying will be for that sidewalk.
It's got that huge, curve to it, rake to crown, yes.
And
what do we do with that? I feel like that's an engineering feat.
That's a tough one.
And we'll have to spend a little money and time trying to determine, why was that put there that way originally, and then how or what can be done. Well, obviously, if we're putting some I don't know if we're planning to put curb and gutter along there at this point. We were looking at a mill and overlay on the existing. We'll probably have curb and side, unless we have an offset sidewalk on that south side. So those are all questions we're gonna have to address and see what and how. I don't know if we can lower the whole road a little bit, or, I don't know. So that's where the topo map, pulling in what's there, where the inlets are for storm drainage, where the existing storm drains are, what else can we put in there, those kinds of things will all have to be addressed with that.
So engineering might be a little bit more.
I suspect it will be not only a feat, but it'll be much pricier than just the entrance to Rogers.
Any other questions? I'm gathering the consensus is to stick with the Grand Avenue project. Move forward. Okay,
Yes.
Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
And please don't get me wrong, I want to bring this up for discussion because there's a lot of talk about it. So I want to put in the public community to see what the numbers would be if we pursue this
Absolutely.
this year. They'll go up some next year, but what else are the engineering costs as well?
Sure, absolutely.
I'll have that ready for a fall budget.
Beautiful. All right, moving on to the new shop edition. Mr. Rankin.
I'm simply going to fund it, Public Works Director on this one.
Thank you, Mrs. Mayor, members of the board. This is something that's been talked about for a number of years. We We're a little bit afraid of what the numbers may come back with what we were hearing for metal building costs and building in general and that kind of thing. We put this out to, we put the RFP out to 3 different companies. We put it out to TCC, which is the company that did the senior center and the athletic or rec room, the fitness center. There's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. Landmark Engineering or Landmark Builders, who did the Anadarko building / Occidental building, and they've done a couple other projects both in the Energy Park and some areas around here. And then we went, we also contacted Steel Structures of America to see what they could do. Steel Structures of America does only wood frame / then steel exterior. They don't do any kind of steel frame interior or anything like that. And due to that, I did the same thing. I thought, well, they're a company that's out there at 66 and 52. We touched base with them, and they're semi-local, so we give it a shot, see what happened. And part of let me back up just a little bit. I went to the owner of TCC and said, listen, you used to be the rep for American Buildings, which was the original shop, or the original 4-bay shop was built by American Buildings. He emailed me back and said, if you're doing an American Buildings, count us out. We won't work with the rep, we won't work with the company. They called him for some details. He got stood up on a couple of projects where they didn't back up their pricing, and that was before this escalation thing had started. And so he was like, well, just count us out. We're not even interested. He said, if you're doing another steel building and we're working with this company or this company, we'll be happy to shoot you a bid on it. Well, what the town needed is, we don't have an architect on hand. We don't have, soils engineer on hand. We don't have all this stuff. So the owner of TCC said, put out a package that just basically says, this is what you want the package to include, and then have the companies get back to you with what their proposal, a timeline of the building they would use and all that stuff. So I included as part of the packet the RFP that we put out. Basically, we wanted a turnkey facility with 2 new bays. The original building, when it was built, was 4 bays, but I learned through the process that on a metal building, if you don't build the ends in such a way that you're planning for an expansion, then they only use about half to 2/3 of the steel in them, and they've got additional cables in the ends that are able to support, but they don't do a clear span like your middle sections will. So if you weren't planning for an addition, then you have to take down that end of the building, reconfigure it, and do the whole thing. And we actually found out it would be cheaper to put an additional new building beside it and then just cantilever the roof over and tie the roof together and leave a 5-foot span or 5-foot space between the two. So that's what we ended up bidding out, was just a new building, because the cost of tearing down the old wall, putting a new wall up and everything else, they said you're going to be money ahead if you're not looking to if it doesn't have to be attached in an open space in between. So we opted for the option that would give us the space without costing us a whole lot of extra funds. So right now, TCC came back with a proposal, and Landmark Builders came back with a proposal. The base price of the building with the bonding, TCC was at $294,431. Landmark Builders was at $201,745. They are using 2 different metal building manufacturers, but both metal building manufacturers are reputable building manufacturers, so I don't have a significant preference one way or the other over one of the 2 that they would be doing. As you can see, the options that we asked for, we did ask for some additional items that we could just see what the pricing would be. including, and the biggest item on both of those is paving and putting a trickle channel through the center of the existing and over to the new detention pond that's over there by south of the fire department parking lot, north of our parking lot. That was a detention pond that was designed to handle some of the fire department flows off their parking lot on the southern end of their parking lot and off of the north end of our site. So that is already designed and planned for. It includes some fencing from the fire department fence over to the new building. It includes replacing some chain link fencing that's between the existing town hall and the existing public workshop. One thing I never thought of was the 8-foot panels that go up on the inside of a metal building after they put the insulation up, so you have something to attach tools to and other things like that, so you don't just have those hanging. We did ask them to go ahead and give us a quote for heat if we decided to take it from being cold storage to a heated facility. I'm trying to think what the other add-ons were.
Demo existing fence, asphalt paving, concrete valley pan and asphalt paving, fencing, interior liner panels, and HVAC.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
You got it.
So right now, in the budget for this year, we had set aside $225,000.
Correct.
And so we could afford to use the landmark bid and do everything but the paving. I hate to put a dirt lot just over to the new building, but if that's what we needed to do, I'll let you and the town manager kind of take it over from here as far as whether how we could proceed. The $225,000 estimate that we put out there last year did not include, we didn't anticipate paving at the time. I'm not sure why I didn't factor that in, but I didn't. And the bid price that we were using was, at this point, a 2-year-old steel building price. So that's kind of the two significant differences.
If you just look at the building, and I'm pleased with that because it actually came in the budget, the add-ons. And part of my thinking with the paving, which is the additional add-on cost, is the public works yard, looking at it over these years, and the drainage, it needs to be improved. If we did the paving with the shop, then the public works section of the town hall property would basically be done. Then when we build the new PD next door in a few years, when that may be with the help of a grant, the parking lot out front on the side is also in pretty rough shape or sitting that way. I mean, the building was built in 1996. And at that time, we do those improvements with the paving of the new PD. So we do it in 2 phases. That's my thought process. Or we can save the money and just do I do highly recommend doing the fencing. That needs to be done to secure our equipment. Eventually the 3-layer barbed wire prison fence will come down. I think we have enough cameras up, and honestly over the years it hasn't deterred anybody. They just cut the barbed wire and climb the fence. You know, and we've had a few of those. Mostly it's still dogs out of kennels, but weird stuff.
Take their dogs.
Yeah. But that's a recommendation. I think the budget will hold it. It is over budget.
What are you recommending?
I'm recommending the whole thing.
Okay.
So you're recommending $285,792.
From Landmark Builders.
It is what's going on this year.
And we make a budget amendment, or do we have someplace else we can?
It would be too early to tell on budget amendment.
And this is part of this year's budget, right? So we would
Correct.
be
This is this year's budget. The chip sealing estimate, which you haven't seen yet, is coming in a little less than we budgeted. And the thing with the general fund is you have to look at all the projects in combination, not per line item. So we bought some water, which dipped into the Grand Avenue project, at least in my thinking, because that was the equivalent. We may have to do budget amendment, I just don't know yet. So It's too early to tell. We still need to, finish up, Reynolds Avenue is a big one, but most of that's gonna come out of capital improvement fund. The sidewalk fund.
And Troy, if I may, part of this, the other significant difference between the two of these, and I apologize for not bringing it up sooner, was TCC was anticipating a October-November finish. LBI is anticipating a December-January finish, so I don't know if some of the funds, final payments, stuff like that would end up coming out of the 22 budget to finalize things, or if we would get the invoices in time to pay them out of the 21 budget. I'm not 100% sure on that, but for the difference in price, the $60,000 there or so that's difference between the two, I'll take the 60-day longer window to save that amount of money. That does not, $1,000 a day doesn't seem like a good use of our funds.
Talking about the entire budget, there's a couple other projects I looked at. Speaking of the entire budget, we have $20,000 set aside in the budget to redo the stuff around Town Hall. That can wait another year. We put another $30,000 to build a playground of some kind of the community complex, but I'm not really promoting that yet because we need to talk about the whole master plan concept. So right there's $50,000. So you're we're looking at $60,000 over budget, but I just looked at $50,000 we don't have to spend. Those are not high priority. So in totality, I think we'll be fine. I just can't say right now we absolutely will be, especially if we do Grand Avenue because of the water. But why not buy water? It's $59,000 a share. I mean, that's a decision I support. So.
We were gonna use, extra funds anyways, out of our savings basically, right, for that project, so.
We are.
It would just be we're gonna probably need to make a budget amendment regardless. I guess unless we decide not to do the project at all, right? Because we bought that water that wasn't budgeted, we, as a responsible group, probably knew that meant a budget amendment was coming for that. Right, or we were gonna have to find.
Oh, we have to give something out.
$60,000, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't give the exact number. To guarantee we'll stay within budget, by buying the water, we simply will not do Grand Avenue and just put this off for a year. To guarantee to stay within the budget, but
sure.
It's still true. I need 2 more months of revenue to come in before I can actually tell the board I feel really comfortable with this.
They're looking good right now.
Right now, it's fine. I mean, there are sales taxes coming in a little bit higher than I anticipated them to come in based upon budget. And if that maintains, I still don't know the impact of 7-Eleven yet, because I haven't seen those numbers.
Right.
It's too early, because it's always basically a 2-month lag for the sales tax reported to the state. Property taxes coming in. We won't know about some of our smaller funds, or higher user tax money is coming in as budgeted. Severance tax we won't know, but it's not a big number. That always comes out August, September from the state, from oil and gas. But over half, 50% of our revenues is sales tax and property tax. And right now they're stable.
On Grand Avenue, is there any help we can get from the county?
No.
Do we have to pay to haul off the rotor milling, the old asphalt when they do Grand?
We usually keep it.
Okay.
I mean,
That's what I'm gonna get at, maybe
You can dump it
using
at my house.
I was gonna say, start lining this drive coming in back to Public Works and through, you guys probably already thought of that, but using it right here.
We've considered it there. We typically stockpile it up at the cemetery, Nick. And part of that is when they rotomill it, it comes off in small pieces until it doesn't, and then you get a big chunk. And for the most part, the rotomill is somewhere between 1 inch and 2 inch, but then you get some bigger pieces and pieces that flake off or come off, and you got a 6 or 7 inch piece and 5 inch piece and that kind of thing. So we actually built a Grizzly a few years ago that we have them stockpile, and then we feed that through, and that gives us 2 inch or less material that we can take, and then we have the pile of the bigger stuff, and the bigger stuff goes into some of the bigger potholes in the alleys and some other areas like that, where we're able to really build it up and then put the finer material up on top of it. And so we've done some alley work, we've done some work at the cemetery, we use it at the Veterans Memorial and that entrance to the cemetery, that's all recycled, it's up there. Yes, we've considered it here as well.
I was just looking for a saving point there to not have them haul it off and just dump it over here.
And we've been doing that for a number of years. We try to keep all the millings,
Right.
and if we have to, one year we had a big pile out here in the old public works area, and we rented a screener, and we screened it different sizes so we could use it. But we've been using a lot of it in the alley, so I don't give that stuff away. It's too valuable for us.
Yeah, okay.
It's just a question, because I know we don't have extra money in either of these funds right now, but when you're dealing with a capital project that deals with town maintenance, are you able to pay for part of that capital project through your enterprise funds?
Not through the water and sewer enterprise funds.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And Public Works services water and sewer.
Boom. Like a
The
labor.
water fund has some money right now.
Operations.
Because we do put money over.
Part of our, I'd have to ask that. I've never been asked that one before. It's always been, can you put general fund money to offset enterprise?
We do put.
Sure.
You think enterprise, and honestly, there's not a lot of money in there. I mean, there's
Well,
several.
that's what I mean. These funds are not
Yeah.
flush with money,
No.
but that's just for my education, because we've never done it before. Is it something that,
Can you do it?
I mean, we finished paying off a sewer lagoon or what, the sewage project, and we find ourselves in a position where we have these funds built up to where they're healthy. I mean, a large portion of the cost of maintaining these is our the whole thing is our public works. And if we're building facilities to support our public works, could not the funds also come from these enterprise funds?
Right now, in both water and sewer, we have an administrative fee that the general fund pays, or actually this water fund, the sewer fund pays the general fund back to offset utility billing, the front office, part of the front office staff, part of public works, part of David's salaries, and the general operations, but not for facilities. I think it'd be a stretch, Mike, honestly, if we use water, sewer, enterprise fund to improve an off-site facility. Operations, absolutely, we can justify that. And everybody I've talked to, from our accountant to our bond council, said we can do that. But I just don't have that answer. I can find out, but.
I'm just curious. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not looking to dip into these funds, but
Yeah.
it just seems to me as though if we're building a place to park a backhoe that we use quite a bit to repair water lines,
Absolutely.
to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
It
I've
seems
never
like-
seen it since I've been here used for equipment. It's always been operations.
Well, yeah, I've never seen it either.
Yeah, so I'll find out.
That's why I was just asking for my.
I wasn't prepared for that question.
I think it's a great question, because we've been saving up money in the water fund to do like the lines coming down the hill, right? But we have that COVID relief money potentially that we can use on infrastructure that you've talked about using for those water lines. So then we might have money in the fund that we have potentially allocated for another project that's found a different funding source. So it could work out well if it's a viable option.
Didn't we save money on the backhoe deal too?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
I know you had plans for it, but
Oh, that's true.
Well, a building or a skid steer, maybe.
You make a good point. I mean, I brought up the community center playground, I brought up the town hall improvements, or the stucco. Those are two areas that popped in my head, but looking at the entire budget, I still have to deep dive into that. So I don't have the answer as far as the minute budget, not this early.
Sure.
And every year that we do the budget, I will open to the board that if we go over one line item, I'm gonna find a way to go under other line items.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's what we pay you for.
So.
You do a good job.
We budgeted conservatively without 7-Eleven. The only thing we've gone over so far is on the water spend. I know. June, one thing, we're doing okay.
That wasn't.
Tonight it'll be two, I guess.
Well, we saved money. And David's helped funding his own building.
Was like a $60,000 savings, right?
Well, the
Not
picture
quite,
of-
but I think we'll take the building over the skid steer and we'll fight for that next year.
Well, you mentioned conservative budget, and that's true, we have done that for the last dozen years, and each year you can look back and there's always more revenues than expenditures. Regardless of what number you set for revenues and expenditures, there's always more revenues than what you budgeted. And other than 1 year, there's always been less expenditures than you budgeted. So that cash flow goes into reserves, and that's how we build up a $4 million reserve. And this year we're starting to use that money for projects.
Didn't we even have to approve something that said we weren't gonna have a balanced budget this year because of that, right?
Yep.
So we know.
Well,
Remember that when you're thinking about what we're gonna do and what we're not.
It's,
Said yes.
it's not to dive in the weeds, it's a terminology issue. When I talk to double, your balanced budget is your revenues minus expenditures plus reserves. So some people think, well, your revenues have to offset all your expenditures. And on an average basis, that's true, but the state allows that not to be true, like in this year, if you have all the reserves, because you can't spend your reserves in government finance unless you over budget. You just can't spend that money.
right.
There's no way.
And
Because
budget amendments aren't bad.
No,
They're a word of caution, you know?
it's just, you know, and there's times where we've had to amend other budgets, like last year, law enforcement equipment training fund, it's a special revenue.
Honestly, I was just trying to think back, and I don't think I have been a part of this board for all the years that we have not made a budget amendment.
As things come up. One year after we approved the budget, dove into the year, we got told by Doyle County, we need to spend $40,000 on radios.
Yes.
You know, stuff like that.
Something always comes up.
Those are smaller items. I think we'll be close, but again, it's too early to tell.
So, yeah.
How much do we budget for Grand Avenue? Are we gonna, do we cover it, I guess?
$250, and another $100,000 for the sidewalk, $350.
You'll be close.
That's not a full reconstruction. Again, that was a fairly recent, as of last year, estimate from a reliable contractor. But I hate doing asphalt concrete bids in the fall and thinking that number's gonna stay the same that 6 months later, because it never is. It's a guessing game. We've been pretty fortunate over the years.
We've put quite a bit of money towards it.
Yeah, been pretty fortunate. That's my recommendation. I pass it back to you for approval or non-approval. We could easily do a metal building with cold storage, but at some point, we need to pave that yard. These trucks are heavy.
Yeah.
They can't be on road base forever. So that's why I thought we'd do it now.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments, concerns? I would entertain a motion, please.
Move to approve the proposal from Landmark Builders, Inc. to complete the proposed TW shop building, specific alternate items and yard improvements, allowing staff to enter into agreement approved by town legal counsel in the amount not to exceed $285,792.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please, Danette.
Sure.
Can I ask if does that include a contingency? Is that at all?
It includes a bond. Yes.
There was a bond, but there was not a contingency number in there.
We have to come back if there's,
You guys okay with that? Building something without a contingency is not never a great idea. That's been an experience.
They're gonna have to come back and ask the board. And I don't know if, their numbers are pretty current, from my understanding, Landmark and TCC. And we told them that it'd like to go over what we budgeted because of the cost of steel. So they had to be as dead on as they could. I'm not gonna say they're gonna come back with a change.
It's just was we're asking your comfort level, that's all.
My comfort level is I'm not looking at anything significant.
Sure. Sorry about that.
Nope, nope.
Roll call, please, Danette.
Trustee Overman,
Aye.
Trustee Blum,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Calper,
Aye.
Trustee Bradnan,
Aye.
Trustee Ralston,
Aye.
Trustee Rios.
Aye.
All right,
Thank you.
congratulations.
So if it goes, any overage, skid steer, just.
Am I gonna sell that tobacco?
Invest in some more shovels.
I'm pretty sure the options took the skid steer out.
Yeah.
That was the skid
Yeah,
steer.
I guess that did happen.
I was gonna ask you if we could have TCC build the options. I'm like, yeah, that's probably not very tasteful.
Yeah, they're a little more reasonable.
No, probably not.
Maybe a year down the road.
All right, moving on to reports. Mr. Rankin.
As I indicated in my written report, I took most of last week off. I was on personal leave, family in town, and then my son getting promoted to the next level of years two, Jeremiah. Fun time next 4 years.
Yep, second level, they've leveled up.
Had my last kid graduate.
Yes,
There you go.
congratulations.
I have some stuff to come back to the board with next meeting. I will follow up and do that. Speaking of the budget, David Greeley comes in and count first or early second week of the month to close out the financial statements for the previous month. So I'm waiting on that to happen probably next week to see where we stand in May. And then I should start seeing some revenues from 7-Eleven starting in June. I don't know. Should we hit that window? I mean, it could be probably closer to July.
Yeah.
But I definitely will plan on talking to the board about, we'll put the financials back on action item discussion in the next couple of months. And then I'll go over those details where we stand.
Oh, yeah, it wouldn't be until July, so if we need to push it off a month, that's fine.
And
Because normally it's quarterly, so it'll be
Yeah.
July.
True. So probably be a July conversation. And that's my comfort level, because then I have a better idea where we're at.
Beautiful.
So,
Love it.
and then see where else, we need to do some savings as well in the budget. Couple just minor things, the sidewalk, Division Boulevard project, heard today that CDOT's about done. This is a CDOT project, they're funding it. It's taken a long time through the permitting process, and Brad Kirsch engineer has submitted form after form after form, and we're finally getting approval from, plus they have to approve all the construction docs. This is a simple 5-foot wide sidewalk attached to existing curb and gutter. Okay, it's taking a long time. It's 100% grant, so I'm not gonna complain. But, we should be able to put out the bid next month, into this month, David, do you think? It just depends, kind of where CDOT gives us the rubbers for the stamp of approval. But today we heard they were almost done, so people have asked me about that. And then plans for Reynolds Avenue, again, that's gonna have to just be contingent on then they're gonna be done. Initially, Dave and I were told that it would be done by mid-May. Now we're looking at mid-June. So, end of June. So you talk about Harvest Daze. It's definitely not gonna be done by Harvest Daze. I'm hoping by the end of the year. So, can't control that. Our new deputy clerk, Tessa Yates, starts on Monday. Deputy clerk / admin assistant, sorry. And then the front office will be fully staffed once and for all. I'll remind the board, and I'll let you know more at the next meeting, that we will have a retirement farewell for 7-year town clerk treasurer by the end of the month. She's behind me, give me the evil eye.
You feel it burning.
The end of
Yeah,
June.
feel it burning.
In
just do that at Harvest Daze. We just have a big old bash, huh?
I don't think she'll come back.
Go ahead. You can party all
We
night.
don't have to do anything but hang out at the beer garden. I'll hang out with you.
With his
Yeah.
3 drinks.
That's pretty funny.
No, that's all you know how to make, right?
Oh, well, yeah.
Just sit Mary down and give her a bottle.
Just have a bottle.
End of June, Troy.
End of June, right now we're looking at Friday the 25th.
What's your favorite restaurant, Mary? Not Mary's home kitchen.
Right.
Oh, I don't, no. I don't ever go out to eat.
She likes Chinese food.
I got something planned.
Yes.
She really makes some good crab wontons.
Oh.
So,
I like those.
What time? Do you have a time nailed down?
actually, I haven't talked to you, but I plan on doing it at noon and not coming back to work. Having it at Lincoln Park for the
Oh.
afternoon.
Closing down.
Closing down Town Hall at noon on the Friday 25th and go to Lincoln Park and have a get together.
Love it. Okay.
If that's okay with you, Nicole.
Friday the 25th.
Yes.
This month.
Yes.
You should approve a special event.
Obviously, it's not a surprise party. So. Friday, today I forwarded it to the mayor, we officially closed on our loan for the new wastewater facility. That now starts the process. Our first payment is next November, a year from this November. It's a partial payment. And full payments will be in 23. So I'm reading through all the final documents now. When the green comes in, I will go through that requisition process when the invoices come in, the payments, so we'll have to do all that. And that'll be just a long process. They informed me today that he will be, and I will, when I can, be part of a weekly Tuesday meeting for every Tuesday for the next year. And it's just updates with Moltz on a week-to-week status update on what they're doing. And he found out today that the fireworks for Harvest Daze will probably be just fine where they're at.
Okay.
At least one more year. So they're comfortable doing that, so.
About our operator, that was something we were gonna have to look at.
We are.
What are you gonna do for us, David?
It's gonna be a more detailed conversation this fall, we go to the budget, because we'll have to actually have the operator in next year online.
Right.
We will either, our options is, Public Works Director has a C, you have to go to a B, you have to have a conversation, we'll have it with you, but that's probably not option one, that's probably the last option.
Sure.
A lot of small communities will contract it out, which is the most costly option. But David has done some research in some communities that have been able to hire qualified water/wastewater operators at more affordable costs. So those are conversations we're gonna have this fall. So we've had that long, lengthy conversation already, but it's gonna be a budgetary discussion. I don't wanna spend $100,000 plus annually for an operator.
Oh.
How long does it take to get this certification?
To be a B operator, you have to have 4 years' experience in a B-rated plant or above.
So it's nothing that anybody we have.
Nobody we have would have enough experience to test for it at this point, with the exception of myself. Because of my previous experience at my former job, I have the time in the plant. It would be the willingness to go back and study everything that I would have to study to be able to pass that exam. It's about a 4 to 6 hour exam to pass your B. And you have to have a minimum of 4 years experience to even sit for it. So
we'll dive into that more detailed conversation this fall. I'm still waiting on a draft IJ from land use agreement from Firestone with Mr. Kruger. That should be coming in the next month. That will be a point of conversation during our July study session. Reminder, next Tuesday on the 8th, we have a study session coming up for June. And that'll be focused on talking about a community complex master plan and the cemetery expansion plan, along with some discussion as far as economic opportunities and growth in the area from some of the stuff people I've talked to over the years. So, any questions you have, I made my short, pretty short, my report.
So next meeting is next Tuesday.
I'm sorry?
Next meeting is next Tuesday.
At 6:30, study session.
Can we have food?
We will have some sort of food.
Beautiful.
It won't be me cooking, I know that.
We got that gift card from Double Tree.
Yep.
On my calendar out here, there's, not last week, but the week before, I had tons of meetings. Let's see. We had a quarterly mayor's update meeting with Weld County, and they didn't have a lot to discuss. They just wanted to make sure if anybody had any questions, they were ready to answer them. So that one was literally 10 minutes. Then we had that Parks, Trails, and Trees Committee meeting. That was good. The Wildcat Trail meeting. That was really good. Trying to get that rehashed, re-going. There's several landowners that are not excited about it, but they want a seat at the table, and they want to be part of the discussion. So I'll be emailing Mr. Clint. Highway 85 Coalition meeting was that night as well, and we have projects coming out. I don't know if any of you guys have seen my updates that I posted on Nextdoor and Facebook, but we have the resurfacing south of town from 22 up to the way station.
Basically 28.
Yes, yep, absolutely. And then County Road 44 closures in Peckham is gonna start here in the fall, and it will be completed in the spring of 2023.
That intersection and everything?
Okay. It's all one way. Yeah, they're gonna build a ramp going over the highway so the
I know they were
exit.
that quick at
Yeah, it's, yes, yep.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Why did they not do much of themselves?
It's
Just
true.
saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's the railroad, but they're probably on
The
board.
railroad is, yeah, quicker than
They're
it's
just gonna go over the
Yeah.
railroad. They don't own the
Yeah.
sky.
And they want the closure.
Depends on who you ask.
Think about the railroad tracks we do.
But yeah, that was a good one too. That was really a really good. We had, I bet you had 30 people in attendance. We haven't had a meeting for almost a year, so it was good to see everybody and have a meeting. That's all I have. Does anybody have any questions, comments, anything else before the board?
I saw last week at the CDOT way station, there was like a whole team of people there. Do you know if they were doing anything or just cleaning it? They had it like all open and there was like a whole group of people there.
I think they're cleaning it out, because I've seen more boards go up lately.
Yeah, more
were they just
yeah.
cleaning
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
The mayor and I actually have an update meeting with CDOT in History, Colorado next week,
Okay.
so we'll find out what's going on there.
Yeah, but hopefully we can work together and make that work.
Something cool to do.
Yeah, get something not,
Boarded.
yeah, a little prettier over
Yeah.
there. But, yeah, next week is the next meeting.
This Thursday, I'll have my first in-person Upper Front Range Transportation Region meeting since COVID hit.
Oh, good,
We pulled up at the rec center.
okay.
And usually there's a lot of CDOT updates as well
This Thursday?
this Thursday afternoon. So,
Okay. All right, anything else before the board? All right, guys.
When's the park gonna be built?
What?
When's this park gonna be done? The new park?
Before Harvest Daze.
This
Do we know when that's getting shipped? It's We don't have any update.
I haven't heard anything on it yet, so.
No updates. I can reach out to the vendor and see where they're at. They're supposed to be complete by the end of July.
Yeah.
It's like 6 weeks from order, which is.
Must be
Three, 4
3
weeks
weeks.
ago. Probably see some.
I'll cover our last bucket.
Yeah.
Parks, Trails, and Trees Committee planted the flowers on the street. Thank you to the committee
Yes.
members for that.
Yeah, all the
That
volunteers.
was awesome.
Yes.
You had a good day?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you guys.
Hey,